The lights dim gently. Welcome to the dimmed light. There's nowhere to go, nothing you need to do. Just stay in this moment and let the calm carry you. And our journey is quietly beginning. It is the deep middle of the night in late autumn, and the great stone keep stands silent against a vast, starless sky. The air inside is still holding a weight that feels older than the stones themselves. A single figure, the keeper of the night watch, moves slowly through the lower corridor. His boots are made of soft leather, yet the uneven flagstones beneath him are so cold that the chill seeps through the soles with every step he takes. There is no great fire roaring. Now, only the faint, dying embers in the distant hearth of the main hall, casting long, trembling shadows that stretch across the rough masonry. The smell here is distinct. A mixture of old wood smoke that never quite leaves the air, the damp earthiness rising from the cellar, and the cold, metallic scent of iron hinges. The keeper pulls his heavy wool cloak tighter around his shoulders. The fabric is scratchy against his neck, but it is the only barrier against the draft that whistles softly, almost musically, through the narrow arrow slits. He is tired, a heaviness settling behind his eyes, but he must walk the perimeter once more before he can rest. The silence of the keep is not empty, it is solid, built of the same gray, heavy stone that rises around you in every direction. You are standing still for a moment, letting the weight of the hour settle upon your shoulders, feeling the immense, crushing quiet of the castle at rest. There is no sound from the village below, no movement in the courtyard outside. Only the stillness of the masonry that surrounds you like a second skin. You shift your weight slowly from one foot to the other. A small, almost imperceptible movement designed to keep the blood flowing, to remind your limbs that they are still warm, still living amidst this ocean of cold, inanimate rock. Your boots are made of thick, cured leather, worn soft by years of pacing these same corridors, the soles smoothed down by the endless friction of grit and granite. Yet, for all their thickness, they are no match for the floor beneath them. The flagstones here are massive, cut from the deep earth centuries ago, and they seem to hold a memory of the winter ground they once were. You can feel that chill pressing up through the layers of leather, seeping into the wool of your stockings, finding the soles of your feet with a relentless, patient determination. It is not a sharp cold, not like the bite of a winter wind that stings and burns, but a dull, heavy ache that climbs slowly up through the bones of your ankles and into your shins. You take a slow step forward, the sound of your boot meeting the stone echoing softly, a muffled thud that travels only a few feet before being swallowed by the shadows. You look down at the floor, tracing the uneven lines of mortar with your eyes in the dim light. The stones are not perfectly flat. They are bowed slightly in the center, worn down by generations of feet just like yours, soldiers and servants and lords who have walked this path, all leaving their ghostly impression on the rock. The gray surface is mottled with the stains of age, dark patches where the dampness from the earth below has risen up to stain the surface. To your left, the wall rises up into the darkness, a sheer cliff of masonry that feels as though it leans inward, pressing against the air of the corridor. You reach out a hand, almost instinctively seeking a point of contact, a way to anchor yourself in this floating darkness. Your palm meets the rough, uneven surface of a limestone block. It is shockingly cold, a temperature that seems to pull the heat instantly from your skin, as if the stone is thirsty for warmth. You keep your hand there, feeling the texture of it, the coarse grain that scrapes gently against your calluses, the slight slickness of moisture that clings to the darkest crevices. This castle was built to keep enemies out, to withstand sieges and arrows and fire. But tonight it feels as though its primary purpose is to hold the cold in. The walls are 6 feet thick in places, a density of rock that takes all summer to warm and all winter to freeze. And now, deep in the autumn, they have become vast reservoirs of chill. You can feel the temperature radiating from them, a physical presence that pushes against you, heavier than the air itself. It is a damp cold, smelling of wet dust and saltpeter, a scent that lives in the pores of the rocks and is released only in the dead of night. You withdraw your hand and pull it back inside the fold of your cloak, tucking it under your arm to capture what little body heat remains. The cloak is heavy, a rough, spun wool that scratches against your neck, but you are grateful for its weight. It hangs from your shoulders like a shield, creating a small, personal climate between your skin and the stone world outside. You can feel the air inside the cloak, slightly warmer, smelling of your own fatigue and the faint residue of wood smoke from the guardroom fire you left hours ago. But even the cloak cannot cover everything. The tip of your nose is numb, and your ears feel as though they have been dipped in ice water. You exhale slowly, a long, weary breath that leaves your lips in a gray plume. The mist of your breath hangs in the air for a moment, suspended in the stillness, a ghostly cloud that catches the faint light from the distant torch down the hall. You watch it swirl and dissipate, vanishing into the shadows, your own warmth surrendering to the vast volume of the keep. It is a reminder of how small you are here, how fleeting your heat is against the permanence of this structure. The air you breathe in is crisp and thin, carrying the metallic taste of iron from the gate hinges and the earthy rot of dead leaves from the courtyard. Moving again, you walk deeper into the corridor. your pace slow and deliberate. There is no rush, no destination that needs to be reached quickly. The night is long, and your duty is simply to be here, to be the eyes that watch the nothingness. The corridor narrows slightly here, the ceiling dipping lower, heavy wooden beams crossing overhead, blackened by age and smoke. You can feel the space tightening around you, the cold becoming more concentrated, as if the air itself is being compressed by the weight of the tower above. Every few steps, you pass an arrow slit, a narrow vertical opening in the thick wall that looks out onto the world beyond. You do not stop to look out, for you know what is there. Only the black void of the valley and the heavy clouds masking the moon. But as you pass each slit, a distinct draft brushes against your face. It is a thin, focused stream of air, colder even than the room, whistling silently through the stone aperture. It touches your cheek like a cold finger, tangling in the hair at your temple, finding the gap between your scarf and your collar. You adjust the heavy leather belt at your waist, the metal buckle cold against your midriff, even through your tunic. The weight of the keys hanging there is a familiar burden, a rhythmic clinking that accompanies your steps, metal striking metal in a soft, dull chime. You pause by a wooden door, the entrance to a storage cellar, and lean your shoulder against the frame for a moment. The wood is old oak, hard as iron, and while it is not as freezing as the stone, it offers no comfort. It stands rigid, unyielding, its surface scarred by knives and scarred by time. The darkness here is not absolute, but it is heavy. A single rushlight burns in an iron sconce further down the hall, its flame small and trembling. It casts a weak, watery pool of yellow light that barely reaches the floor, leaving the corners of the corridor drowning in shadow. You watch the flame flicker, dancing frantically as it consumes the animal fat, fighting a losing battle against the vast, smothering dark of the castle. The light does not push the shadows back. It merely holds them at bay, creating a small island of visibility that seems to shrink with every breath you take. You rub your hands together briskly, the friction creating a momentary spark of heat that fades as soon as you stop. Your fingers feel stiff, the joints resisting movement, the cold having worked its way deep into the tendons. It makes you feel older than you are. This stiffness, a heaviness that mimics the weight of the stone around you. You wonder, idly, if the stone ever feels the cold, or if it simply exists, indifferent to temperature, indifferent to the seasons, indifferent to the man who walks its halls. The path ahead turns, leading towards the great stairwell, but you linger here a moment longer. You look up at the ceiling, where the shadows gather thickest. You can verify the darkness there, a soot-stained canopy that has absorbed the smoke of 10,000 fires, and yet remains cold. The silence rings in your ears, a high-pitched hum that is the sound of nothing happening, the sound of a world paused in the grip of the night. You take another step, your boot scraping on a slightly raised stone, a harsh sound that makes you wince inwardly, though there is no one to hear it. The floor here is uneven, the foundation having settled over the centuries, shifting the massive slabs just enough to catch a toe. You know this floor by heart, every trip hazard, every dip, every crack, yet the cold makes you clumsy, your feet less sure than they would be in the warmth of the day. The air smells of old dampness here, the scent of the moat that lies stagnant outside the walls, its moisture seeping through the mortar. It is a heavy, earthy smell, thick in the throat. You pull the collar of your cloak up over your mouth, filtering the air through the wool, warming it slightly before it reaches your lungs. The wool is scratchy against your lips, smelling of sheep and lanolin, a comforting, organic scent in this mineral world. You press on, the corridor stretching out before you, a tunnel of gray and black. The walls seem to close in slightly, the perspective distorted by the low light. You feel a shiver start at the base of your spine and work its way up to your shoulders, a primitive reaction to the drop in temperature. You tighten your muscles, forcing the shiver down, refusing to let the cold take control. You are the watcher, the keeper, and you must remain steady even if you are freezing. A large tapestry hangs on the wall to your right, a faded depiction of a hunt long forgotten. The fabric is heavy and stiff with dust, moving slightly in the draft that flows along the wall. You resist the urge to touch it, knowing it will feel clammy and lifeless. Instead, you focus on the texture of the stone archway you are passing under. The arch is low, forcing you to duck your head slightly. As you do, you feel the movement of air above you, the heat of your body rising and being instantly snatched away by the high ceiling. Your legs are beginning to feel the dull ache of the cold, the muscles in your thighs heavy and slow. You force yourself to keep a steady rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2. A marching pace that is more for your own mind than for any destination. The sound of your breathing is the loudest thing in the world, a rhythmic rush of air that marks time in the silence. In, out, cold, warm. The cycle repeats over and over as you traverse the belly of the stone beast. You stop again, this time by a narrow window that has been shuttered against the night. The wood of the shutter is warped, leaving a gap at the bottom where the moonlight bleeds through, a thin, silver line on the floor. You stare at that line of light, mesmerized by its purity, its cold brilliance. It is the only connection to the outside world, a reminder that there is a sky, a moon, a universe beyond these thick walls. You place your hand near the gap, not touching it, just close enough to feel the intense cold radiating from the night air outside. It is a different cold than the stone, sharper, fresher, alive with the movement of the wind. Turning away from the window, you look back the way you came. The corridor is swallowed by darkness, your path erased by the shadows. There is only forward now, towards the stairs, towards the upper levels where perhaps the air is a little lighter, though likely no warmer. You roll your shoulders, hearing the faint pop of a joint, a sound that seems shockingly loud in the quiet. The cold has seeped into the marrow now, a permanent resident in your bones for the duration of the night. You lift your foot, the leather groaning softly, and place it down again. The cycle continues. The stone waits. It has waited for centuries, and it will wait for centuries more. It does not care if you are cold. It does not care if you are tired. It simply is, and in its unyielding presence, you find a strange sort of peace, a surrender to the inevitable reality of the night. You are just a warm flicker in a cold world, a temporary guest in the house of stone. You wrap your cloak tighter, bury your chin in the wool, and take the next step. The torch ahead sputters, a sudden flare of orange that illuminates a patch of rough wall before dying back down. In that brief flash, you see the condensation glistening on the stones. Tiny droplets of water that look like sweat on the brow of a giant. The castle is breathing too in its own slow, damp way. You pass the torch, feeling a momentary, teasing warmth on your face, and then you are past it, plunging back into the cooler air of the shadows beyond. Your shadow stretches out before you, long and distorted, dancing on the floor as you move away from the light. It leads the way, a dark guide pulling you deeper into the keep. The floor here is rougher, less traveled, the stones retaining the chisel marks of the masons who cut them. You can feel the texture through your soles, a subtle vibration that travels up your leg with every step. There is a calmness in this discomfort. The cold strips away unnecessary thoughts, focusing your mind entirely on the immediate sensation, the stone, the air, the dark. You are not thinking of the future or the past. You are only thinking of the next step, the next breath, the next beat of your heart. The world has narrowed down to this corridor, this cold, this moment. You reach the end of the hall where the stone steps of the spiral staircase begin their ascent. The first step is higher than the rest, a trap for the unwary. But you know it well. You pause at the base, looking up into the twisting darkness of the stairwell. A draft rushes down to meet you, carrying the scent of dust and high places. You place your hand on the central pillar, the stone polished smooth by thousands of hands before yours. It is cold, smooth, and solid. You take a deep breath, filling your lungs with the chilly air, and prepare to climb. The stone embraces you, holding you in its frozen grip, and the night continues its slow, silent march. The weight of the keep is above you, around you, beneath you. You are part of the stone now. You take the first step up. You remain at the base of the stairwell, but before you ascend, your gaze drifts back toward the expanse of the lower hall you have just traversed. The darkness here is not merely an absence of light. It feels like a physical substance, a heavy, velvet tapestry that has been draped over the world. The single rushlight mounted in the iron bracket on the wall to your right is the only defiance against this overwhelming blackness. It is a humble thing, a strip of pith dipped in tallow, burning with a low, sputtering resolve. You watch the flame for a moment, mesmerized by its struggle. It does not burn steadily. It bobs and weaves, shrinking down to a blue bid before stretching up into a thin, yellow tongue that licks at the damp air. The light it casts is weak and watery, a pale amber sphere that barely reaches your boots. Beyond this small circle of influence, the hall dissolves into an abyss of gray and black. You find yourself squinting, the muscles around your eyes tightening in a reflex to force clarity where there is none. It is a specific kind of strain, a dull ache behind the brow that comes from staring too long into the void. Your eyes seek shapes, familiar outlines, anything to anchor your perception. But the shadows are deceptive. They soften the hard edges of the stone, blurring the corners of the room until the walls seem to curve and melt into the floor. You take a slow breath, tasting the stale air. The scent of the burning tallow is thick and greasy, a heavy animal smell that coats the back of your throat. It mixes with the ancient soot that clings to the ceiling, a layer of carbon darkness deposited by centuries of torches and hearth fires. You look up, tilting your head back until your neck protests gently. The ceiling is lost to you, hidden behind a veil of impenetrable gloom. You know the beams are there, massive timbers of oak hewn from forests that no longer exist, but tonight they are invisible. There is only the sense of weight above you, the knowledge of the stone and wood pressing down, held aloft by engineering you cannot see. The shadows in the hall are not static. As the rushlight flickers, the shadows jump and stretch, expanding and contracting like breathing chests. A shadow cast by a protruding corbel on the wall elongates, reaching across the flagstones like a dark finger, only to retreat a second later. You watch this silent dance, the rhythmic expansion of the dark. It is hypnotic, a visual lullaby that slows your thoughts. There is no urgency in this movement, only the mindless, repetitive reaction to the shifting light. You step away from the wall, moving slightly deeper into the open space of the hall entrance. The floor here feels even colder, stripped of the slight shelter the corridor walls provided. The darkness seems to press against your sides, a gentle but firm pressure. It wraps around your cloak, filling the folds of the wool, weighing you down. You feel small in this space, a singular point of consciousness in a cavern of dormant stone. To your left, a heavy wooden bench sits against the wall. In the daylight, it is just a piece of furniture, scarred and sturdy. But in this dim light, its form is ambiguous. The shadows pool underneath it, making it seem as though it is floating on a dark lake. The back of the bench casts a tall, rectangular shadow up the wall, a phantom doorway that leads nowhere. You run your gloved hand along the top of the bench as you pass. The wood is cool and smooth, polished by the breeches of countless men who have sat there to remove their muddy boots. The tactile sensation is grounding, a reminder of the solid reality beneath the visual uncertainty. Your eyes drift to the far corner of the hall, where the light of the rushlight fails completely. It is a pocket of absolute black, a corner where the walls meet in a secret embrace. You stare into it, and for a moment, your vision swims with phantom colors, the mind trying to invent data to fill the blankness. There is nothing there but air and stone, yet the darkness feels thick enough to touch. It is a restful darkness, a place where no detail demands your attention, where the eyes can stop working and simply accept the void. The silence in the hall is amplified by the lack of light. Vision and hearing are linked. When you cannot see, you listen harder. You can hear the faint hiss of the rushlight's grease boiling gently. You can hear the settling of the building, a low-frequency groan that vibrates through the soles of your boots. It is the sound of the castle resting, the immense weight of the masonry adjusting itself against the earth. You turn your attention back to the flame. It is the heartbeat of this space. A small deposit of impurities in the tallow causes the flame to pop, a tiny, sharp sound that startles the stillness. A wisp of black smoke rises from the tip of the flame, curling upward in a perfect spiral before disappearing into the gloom. You watch the smoke, tracing its path until it vanishes. It is a slow, lazy ascent, undisturbed by any strong draft here in the sheltered curve of the wall. The light reveals the texture of the stone wall next to you. You lean in closer, examining the surface. The limestone is not smooth. It is pitted and scarred, a landscape of miniature craters and ridges. The shadow of each tiny protrusion is cast long and sharp by the side, lighting, exaggerating the roughness of the block. It looks like the surface of a moon, gray and desolate. You can see the faint sparkle of mica or quartz embedded in the rock, tiny stars trapped in the stone. Catching the weak light and throwing it back with a dull glint. Your eyelids feel heavy. the strain of peering into the dark taking its toll. It would be easy to close them, to let the darkness outside match the darkness inside. But you blink slowly, clearing the film of fatigue, and refocus. You are the watcher. You watch the shadows. You watch the light die and be born again with every flicker. Moving slowly, you circle the small area of the landing. The air is thick with dust motes, visible only when they drift into the halo of the rushlight. They float in suspended animation, tiny specks of the castle itself, bits of straw, wool, dirt, and skin, caught in the amber glow. They swirl gently around you as you move, a microscopic snowstorm that never lands. You wave your hand through the light, disturbing the air, watching the chaotic turbulence you have created among the motes. They spin and dance, then slowly settle back into their drift. The darkness has a way of distorting distance. The far wall seems miles away, then suddenly close as the light shifts. The ceiling feels infinitely high, then oppressively low. You are navigating a space that is fluid, defined not by stone measurements, but by the reach of the flame. You feel a sense of isolation here, a profound solitude. The rest of the castle, the sleeping lord, the servants in the kitchen, the horses in the stables, feels remote, separated from you by oceans of shadow. You are alone with the stone and the dark. A draft wanders in from the stairwell, causing the rushlight to flare wildly. The shadows on the walls leap up, growing tall and jagged, then collapse as the flame steadies. It is a sudden burst of motion in a still world. You pull your cloak tighter, shielding your body from the subtle shift in air temperature. The draft smells of cold stone and damp earth, the scent of the underground coming up to meet you. You look down at your hands. In the poor light, they look pale and ghostly, the skin drained of color. The leather of your gloves looks black and slick. You flex your fingers, watching the tendons move, the mechanics of your own body seemingly strange in this illumination. You are a creature of the light, an intruder in this kingdom of shadow. The soot marks on the wall above the sconce catch your eye. They are black overlapping smudges, a record of every torch and candle that has burned here before. It is a history written in carbon, a timeline of nights just like this one. You wonder about the other watchers who stood here, watching the same shadows, feeling the same cold. Did they see shapes in the dark? Did they feel the weight of the silence? The suit offers no answers, only a dark stain on the gray rock. You turn slowly, your boots scuffling on the grit. You are preparing to leave this pool of light to move towards the stairs. But the transition is slow. You let your eyes linger on the edge of the light, that fuzzy border where the amber fades to gray and then to black. It is not a sharp line, it is a gradient, a soft fading away of reality. You try to see how far you can look into the dark before the shapes become unrecognizable. 3 feet, maybe 4. Beyond that, the world is just suggestion and memory. The darkness feels protective in a way. It hides the grime of the floor, the cracks in the plaster, the age of the structure. It smooths everything over, reducing the castle to simple, broad forms. In the dark, the castle is perfect, eternal, unchanging. It is only the light that reveals the decay. You find a strange comfort in that thought, that the darkness is the castle's true state, its resting face. You take a step towards the stairwell, leaving the direct warmth of the rushlight. Immediately, the shadows lengthen around you. Your own shadow swings behind you, blending with the darkness of the hall. You are merging with the environment, becoming just another shadow in the room. The light is now at your back, a faint glow that outlines your silhouette. The stone archway leading to the stairs is a mouth of darkness. It swallows the light, allowing none of it to pass up the curve of the spiral. You stand before it, looking up. You cannot see the first step clearly. You only know it is there. You will have to trust your feet, trust your memory. The visual world is ending here, at the foot of the stairs. From this point on, it will be a journey of touch and balance. You pause for one last moment, listening. The hall behind you is silent. The flame hisses softly. The shadows are still. You feel the heavy, dormant energy of the room, the gathered silence of the night. It is a heavy blanket, tucking the castle in. You are the only thing awake, the only thing moving. The darkness waits for you to leave, so it can reclaim the space, so it can fill the void left by your presence. You place a hand on the cold stone of the archway. It is damp, slick with the sweat of the castle. You are ready to leave the hall, to leave the flickering light behind. The stairs await, a vertical tunnel of stone and wind. You take a breath, holding the stale. Smoky air in your lungs for a moment, then exhale into the dark. The journey continues upward into the gloom, leaving the dancing shadows of the hall to their silent vigil. The archway above you is a heavy curve of shadow, a stone brow that marks the threshold between the sprawling emptiness of the hall and the tight, coiled intimacy of the stairwell. You place your hand on the central pillar, the stone newel post that anchors the entire spiral. It is a solid cylinder of rock, cold and thick. Its surface polished to a glass, like smoothness by the friction of centuries. Thousands of palms have rested here, just as yours does now, seeking balance in the dark, wearing away the grit of the masonry until only the slick, cool heart of the stone remains. You can feel the history in that smoothness, a tactile memory of every ascent and descent that has come before you. You lift your right foot, the leather of your boot creaking softly, and find the first step. It is higher than you expect, a steep rise that demands effort from your cold muscles. You shift your weight, feeling the heavy wool of your cloak swing slightly with the movement, and push yourself upward. The stone beneath your sole is uneven, worn down in the center where the traffic has been heaviest, leaving a shallow depression that cradles your foot. You settle into it, testing the grip, before bringing your other leg up to join the rhythm. The darkness here is different. It is not the open, airy gloom of the hall. It is a confined, pressing darkness. The walls of the stairwell are close, curving tightly around you. You can sense the masonry just inches from your shoulders, a tunnel of rock that spirals endlessly upward into the night. There is no railing on the outer wall, only the rough, unfinished texture of the stones. You keep your left hand firmly on the central pillar, trailing your fingers along its curve, letting it guide you as your eyes fail to penetrate the gloom. It is your lifeline, this cold stone spine, the only constant in a world that is constantly turning. Step by step, you begin the climb. The rhythm is slow, dictated by the steepness of the stairs and the weight of your own fatigue. 1, 2, 3. There is a hypnotic quality to the movement, a repetitive cycle of lifting, planting, and pushing. Your breath sounds louder in this confined space, echoing off the close walls, a soft, rhythmic rasp that marks time. The air in the stairwell is cooler than in the hall, moving in a continuous, silent draft that flows down from the tower above. It brushes past you, carrying the scent of raw stone and the high, thin air of the ramparts. The stairs are not uniform. This was a defense, a way to stumble an enemy running in the dark. But tonight, it is simply a challenge to your weary legs. Some steps are shallow, barely a few inches high, while others require a deep knee bend to mount. You have to pay attention to each placement, your body learning the topography of the path through the soles of your boots. You feel the edge of a step through the leather, the sharp corner of the stone pressing into the ball of your foot. You adjust, finding the center, finding the balance. As you climb, the world below begins to fade. The faint smell of the wood smoke from the hall drifts away, replaced by the mineral scent of the shaft. You are entering a vertical world, a place where direction is limited to up or down. The spiral is tight, turning completely on itself every few steps. It disorients the senses gently. You lose track of which direction the castle faces, north, south, east, west. They all blur into the singular reality of the curve. There is only the stone to your left and the stone to your right, and the endless twist of the stairs. Your legs begin to feel the strain. A dull, warm heaviness settles into your thighs, a sensation of blood pumping harder to fuel the climb. It is not a painful burn, but a reminder of the effort, a physical grounding that keeps you present in your body. You can feel the fabric of your breeches tightening against your knees with every step up. The friction of the wool against your skin a constant, soft whisper. The heavy cloak weighs on your shoulders, pulling you back slightly, forcing you to lean forward into the ascent. You are carrying your own shelter, a burden that is also a comfort. You pause for a moment on a narrow landing, a small widening of the stairs where a slit window lets in a breath of the night. The window is nothing more than a vertical gap in the thick wall, no wider than your hand. You cannot see much through it, just a slice of heavy, dark gray sky, but the air that pushes through is brisk and cleansing. It cools the sweat that has started to prickle on your forehead. You lean your head against the central pillar, the stone pressing cold against your temple. The chill is shocking at first, then soothing, drawing the heat from your skin. You close your eyes, listening to the wind whistle softly through the slit, a lonely, hollow sound that speaks of the vast emptiness outside. Resuming the climb, you become aware of the sound of your own movement, the scuff of leather on grit, the rustle of the cloak against the wall, the soft click of the keys hanging at your belt. In the tight acoustics of the spiral, these sounds are magnified, becoming the soundtrack of your journey. You are a one-man procession moving through the dark. The echo of your boot landing seems to travel up the stairs ahead of you, announcing your arrival to the empty upper floors. The central pillar remains smooth under your hand, but occasionally your fingers brush against a joint in the stone, a thin line of mortar that interrupts the glass-like surface. It is a small detail, a textural imperfection that your mind latches onto. You trace the line for a second before your hand slides further up. It grounds you. The wall on your right is different if you brush against it. The stone is coarse, snagging on the wool of your cloak. You stay close to the center, hugging the axis of the tower. The spiral seems endless. You have lost count of the steps. Was it 20, 30, 50? It doesn't matter. The numbers are abstract. The physical reality is the only thing that counts. Lift. Step. Push. The repetition is soothing, a mantra of motion that empties the mind. You are not thinking about the cold, or the dark, or the lateness of the hour. You are simply climbing. The motion becomes automatic, your body taking over, knowing exactly how high to lift the foot, how far to shift the weight. You feel a subtle change in the air pressure as you rise higher. The heavy, stagnant atmosphere of the lower levels is giving way to something thinner, lighter. It is subtle, a shift in the way the air feels in your lungs, crisp and sharp. The darkness seems to change texture too, becoming less like velvet and more like a gray mist. It is still impenetrable, but it feels less heavy, less crushing. Your hand slides up the pillar, finding a notch where a torch bracket was once mounted. The iron is gone, leaving only a hole in the stone, cool and empty. Your fingers dip into it for a second, exploring the void before moving on. It is a tactile landmark, telling you that you are halfway to the solar. You adjust your cloak, pulling it tighter around your neck as the draft increases. The wind is stronger up here, finding its way down the shaft with more force. It ruffles the hem of your tunic, a ghostly touch against your legs. The dizziness of the spiral is a gentle thing, a soft spinning of the inner ear that makes the world feel like it is tilting. You stop for a second to let the sensation pass, planting both feet firmly on a single step. You are standing in a tube of stone, suspended between the earth below and the sky above. You feel safe here, enclosed by the massive thickness of the walls. Nothing can reach you in this narrow passage. You are held by the castle, encased in its strength. You take a deep breath, the cold air filling your chest, waking you up just enough to continue. The fatigue in your legs is a heavy, comfortable blanket now. It slows you down, forcing you to take the stairs with a deliberate, meditative pace. You are not rushing to the top. You are simply arriving, step by step. The journey is the destination. The stone under your feet feels solid, reliable. It has not moved for centuries, and it will not move tonight. You look up, though there is nothing to see but the curve of the steps disappearing into the shadow above. The darkness is absolute, hiding the end of the climb. You trust that the stairs continue, that the stone will be there to meet your foot. You lift your leg again. The muscles in your calf stretch, a satisfying tightness. You push up. The leather sole grips the stone. You rise. The silence here is profound. It is not just the absence of noise. It is a heavy, stone, muted silence that absorbs sound. Your footsteps don't ring out. They land with a dull thud that is instantly swallowed. It feels as though the tower itself is hushing you, urging you to be quiet, to respect the sleep of the structure. You move softly, trying not to disturb the peace of the stones. As you near the top of this section, the curve of the stairs tightens slightly. The steps become narrower at the center, forcing you to step wider, moving away from the comforting pillar for a moment. You feel the wall against your right shoulder, rough and cold. You are squeezed between the two surfaces, a physical embrace that is both tight and secure. You navigate the turn slowly, your hand leaving the pillar to brace against the outer wall. The stone there is raw, unpolished, covered in a fine layer of dust that coats your glove. You are almost there. You can feel the change in the space ahead, a sense of opening up. But for now, you are still in the throat of the tower, still climbing the endless stone spine. The rhythm continues. Lift, step, push. The world is a spiral. The world is stone. The world is the slow, steady beat of your own heart in the darkness. You let the fatigue wash over you, not fighting it, but letting it guide your pace, slowing you down, bringing you into perfect sync with the motionless, silent night of the keep. You step off the final curved stone of the spiral staircase and onto the flat, level flagstones of the upper corridor. The transition is felt not just in the muscles of your legs, which gratefully accept the even ground, but in the sudden change of the air's acoustic weight. In the tight coil of the stairwell, sound was suffocated, wrapped close to your body by the narrowing walls. Here, in the longer, vaulted passage of the upper keep, the silence expands. It rushes away from you, filling the dark volume of the hallway, creating a vast, hollow space that seems to be waiting for a noise to carry. You stand still for a moment to catch your breath, and even this simple act sounds loud. The inhalation is a rough rush of air over your teeth, and the exhalation is a soft, wary sigh that does not simply vanish. It drifts. You can hear the faint tail of your own breath washing against the stone ceiling arches, a whisper of life in a structure built for stillness. It is the strange paradox of these great stone halls. They are built of such heavy, solid materials, yet they are as sensitive as a taut drumhead. Every sound is caught, held, and amplified, turning the private act of breathing into a public declaration of presence. You shift your weight, and the leather of your boot groans. It is a low, dry creak, the sound of tanned hide stretching, but here it sounds sharp, almost startling. The sound travels down the corridor, bouncing off the limestone blocks, returning to you a fraction of a second later as a ghostly echo. You realize that there is no true silence here, not in the way one finds silence in an open field or a deep forest. Here the silence is active. It is a canvas upon which every tiny shift in the environment is painted in stark relief. Outside, beyond the thick curtain walls, the wind has picked up. You cannot see it, but the castle sings with it. It is not a direct sound, for the shutters are closed and the walls are thick, but a resonant vibration that hums through the entire structure. The wind hits the flat, defiant face of the keep, and the stone absorbs the impact, transforming the energy into a low, thrumming bass note that you feel in your chest more than you hear with your ears. It is a deep, subsonic shudder, a reminder of the immense forces of nature warring against the engineering of man. High above, in the complex network of chimney vents and smoke outlets, the wind finds a voice. It blows across the openings of the stone flutes, creating a hollow, mournful hooting sound. It rises and falls with the gusts, a disembodied melody that filters down through the masonry. Sometimes it sounds like a distant horn, blowing a warning that no one needs to heed. Other times, it is just a low moan, the sound of the castle breathing in its sleep. You listen to it, mesmerizing in its irregularity, a song without rhythm, played by the night air on an instrument of rock. You begin to walk down the corridor, your pace instinctively slower, softer, as if you are trying not to wake the building. But the floor betrays you. The flagstones here are larger, resting on great timber beams beneath the floor level. With every step, there is a distinct, hollow thud. It is a sound of impact, heavy and dull, that rolls away from you into the darkness. You can imagine the sound traveling through the floor, filtering down into the rooms below, a rhythmic knocking on the ceiling of the great hall. In a place like this, privacy is an illusion of the eyes only. The ears know that everyone is connected by the transmission of sound through the skeleton of the keep. Somewhere far away, on the other side of the courtyard, or perhaps in the timber framing of the roof, a piece of wood settles. It is a sharp, cracking report, like the snapping of a dry branch. The sound is crisp and sudden, cutting through the low hum of the wind. It is merely the thermal contraction of the night, the old oak timbers shrinking as the temperature drops, pulling against the iron nails and stone sockets. But the sound carries for miles in the quiet. You hear it echo, bouncing from wall to wall, changing tone as it travels, until it fades into a soft click. It makes the castle feel alive, a shifting, adjusting organism that stretches and groans as it rests. You pass a series of wooden doors, heavy oak portals bound in iron. They are closed, sealing off the empty chambers beyond. But as you pass, you hear the subtle rattle of a latch. It is not a hand lifting it, but the pressure of the draft moving through the keyhole, rattling the metal tongue against its housing. Chink, chink, chink. A tiny, metallic conversation between the air and the iron. It is rhythmic, persistent, a small nervous tick in the great stone body of the tower. You pause to listen to it. A small, lonely sound that emphasizes the emptiness of the corridor. The ceiling above you is vaulted, the stone ribs arching up to meet in the center. This architectural shape, designed to hold the weight of the roof, also acts as a perfect acoustic mirror. You clear your throat, a soft, involuntary sound, and the vault catches it, rolling it along the curve of the ceiling. The sound seems to run ahead of you, whispering down the length of the hall, announcing your approach to the shadows at the far end. It is a strange sensation, as if your own sounds are detaching from you and living a life of their own, traveling further and faster than you can. You stop by a narrow alcove, seeking a break from the exposure of the central corridor. Here, in the smaller space, The acoustic changes again. The air feels deadened, the echoes cut short. But the silence is still not absolute. In the absence of your own footsteps, you become aware of the smaller, closer sounds. The friction of your heavy wool cloak against your tunic as you breathe. A soft swish, swish like dry grass moving. The faint, high-pitched ringing in your own ears, the sound of your own nervous system humming in the quiet. The beat of your heart, slow and steady, thumping softly against your ribs, a rhythm you can feel in your throat. A draft wanders down the hall, stronger than before, and it finds a loose edge of a tapestry hanging on the wall. The heavy fabric lifts and falls, slapping gently against the stone. Flap, flap. It is a soft, muffled sound, like a bird trapped in a room, exhausted and resting its wings. You watch the shadow of the fabric move, timed perfectly with the sound. The castle is full of these small, automated movements, a clockwork of wind and weight that operates regardless of human presence. You continue walking, and the sound of your keys chimes in. The iron ring on your belt swings with your stride, the heavy jailer's keys clicking against each other. Clink, clink, clink. The sound is bright and sharp, piercing the dull thud of your boots. It is a sound of authority, of function, but tonight it just sounds lonely. The high frequencies of the metal striking metal seem to linger in the air longer than the low sounds, hanging like shimmering notes in the darkness before dissolving. You reach a section of the corridor where the outer wall is exposed to the full force of the valley wind. Here, the thrumming vibration is stronger. You place your hand flat against the stone blocks. You can feel the sound as much as hear it. A subtle buzzing in your fingertips. The stone is trembling, an imperceptible vibration caused by the millions of invisible hands of the wind pushing against it. It is a reminder of the storm that rages silently outside, separated from you by 6 feet of masonry. Inside, the air is still, but the walls are remembering the wind, transmitting its energy into the room as a low, droning hum. The silence here has a texture. It is thick, heavy, and layered. It is not an empty container, but a soup of fading echoes and potential noises. You feel a sense of acoustic exposure. If you were to speak a word, just a single whispered name, it feels as though it would never stop traveling. It would slide along the walls, slip under the doors, wind its way down the stairs, and whisper itself into every corner of the keep. The castle holds sounds, hoarding them in its vaults. You walk past a ventilation shaft, a small square opening near the floor. From deep within it, you hear the faint, rhythmic dripping of water. Plip, plip, plip. It is far away, perhaps down in the cisterns or a leak in a distant gutter. The sound is tiny, wet, and incredibly distinct. In the daylight, amidst the noise of the household, you would never hear it. But now, it is a major event in the soundscape. You time your breathing to it for a moment, sensing your life with the water. In, plip. Out, plip. It is a soothing, mesmerizing rhythm, a water clock marking the passing of the night. The corridor turns, and the acoustics shift once more. The ceiling lowers, the walls draw in. The echoes become shorter, sharper. The sense of vastness recedes, replaced by a cozy, muffled intimacy. The sound of your boots changes from a hollow boom to a scuffling crunch as the floor changes from flagstone to timber planks. The wood absorbs the sound, softening your passage. The silence here feels warmer, less brittle. It wraps around you, dampening the noise of your movement, allowing you to slip through the dark, almost unheard. You stop at the end of the hall, listening one last time to the symphony of the empty castle. The wind hooting in the chimneys. The tapestries sighing against the walls. The distant groan of settling timber. The latch rattling in the draft. And beneath it all, the low, steady vibration of the stone itself. It is a choir of the inanimate, singing a slow, sad song to the night. You are the only audience standing in the dark, letting the echoing silence wash over you, filling your ears with the heavy, peaceful noise of nothing happening. The castle is talking to itself, and you are just a listener passing through the conversation on your way to rest. As the echoes of your footsteps fade into the vaulted ceiling, a new sensation begins to assert itself, wrapping around you with a subtle, invisible weight. It is not the cold nor the dark, but the air itself. You have moved into a section of the keep where the ventilation is poor, a deep interior pocket where the wind outside cannot reach, and the drafts of the stairwell die away before they can cleanse the space. Here, the air is not a flowing current, it is a standing pool, thick and motionless, held in place by the heavy stones. You take a breath, and the air feels dense in your lungs. It does not rush in with the crisp sharpness of the winter night. Instead, it enters slowly, carrying a complexity of scents that have accumulated over hours, days, perhaps even years. It is a physical presence, a texture that you can almost taste on the back of your tongue. The primary scent is wood smoke. It is not the fresh, sharp smell of a crackling fire, but the old, settled ghost of smoke that has permeated every surface. It clings to the tapestries, the timber beams, and the rough plaster of the walls. It is an acrid, dry scent that prickles gently at the back of your nose, a reminder of the great hearths in the hall below that have burned continuously since the first stone was laid. You rub your eyes gently, feeling a slight stinging dryness. The smoke hangs in the upper reaches of the corridor like a phantom ceiling, a layer of gray haze that never truly dissipates. It filters the darkness, adding a graininess to the shadows. even though the fires have burned down to embers hours ago, their exhale remains, trapped by the masterful masonry that seals this fortress so tightly against the world. You are breathing the exhaust of the castle's life, the byproduct of the warmth that keeps the stone from freezing entirely. Walking slowly through this thick atmosphere, you detect the heavier, oilier undercurrents of the air. Beneath the dry wood smoke lies the lingering memory of the evening meal. It is a rich, savory heaviness, the scent of roasted meats and solidified animal fat that has drifted up from the kitchens and the great hall. In the open air, these smells would have dispersed long ago, carried away by the breeze. But here they are preserved, suspended in the stillness. It is a smell of sustenance and excess, now turned slightly stale by the passing of time. It sits heavy in the stomach, a dense, cloying aroma that makes the air feel nutritious and thick, as if you are swimming through it rather than simply walking. You pass a large oak chest pushed against the wall, and as your cloak brushes it, you disturb the air around it. A faint, sweet scent rises to meet you, struggling against the smoke and the fat. It is the smell of dried herbs, lavender, meadowsweet, and woodruff, scattered among the floor rushes to sweeten the room. But the herbs are old, their essential oils long evaporated, leaving behind a dusty, dry sweetness that smells more like dried hay than a summer garden. It is a faded perfume, a failed attempt to mask the true, earthy nature of the keep. The scent is melancholic, a reminder of a summer that feels centuries away in this deep, cold autumn night. The stillness of the air is profound. In the stairwell, there was always the brush of a draft, the movement of the wind seeking an exit. Here a candle flame would stand perfectly still, an unmoving teardrop of light. You can feel this lack of movement against your skin. The air feels like a blanket that has been draped over you, insulating and stifling all at once. It presses against your face, heavy and unyielding. There is no circulation to carry away the heat of your body or the moisture of your breath, so you exist in a small, personal cloud of humidity that travels with you. You pause by a narrow window, a vertical slit deeply recessed into the thick wall. A heavy wooden shutter is latched tight across it, sealed with a strip of wool to keep out the freezing wind. You place your hand on the latch, tempted for a moment to throw it open, to invite the scouring rush of the cold night air to sweep through the corridor. You crave the shock of it, the clean, empty taste of the wind. But you do not open it. To do so would be to let the winter conquer the keep, to chill the stone that has been so painstakingly warmed. You withdraw your hand, leaving the seal unbroken, accepting the stagnant warmth as the price of protection. The dampness of the castle is a constant companion, an earthy bass note that underpins every other smell. It is the scent of wet stone, of the moat water seeping through the foundations, of the condensation that gathers in the corners where the air flow is dead. It is a mushroom-like smell, cool and organic, rising from the cellar depths to mingle with the smoke above. It reminds you that despite the tapestries and the fires, this is a cave of rock, returned to the earth. You can taste the minerals in the air, the saltpeter that blooms on the masonry like white frost. As you continue your slow patrol, you become aware of the dust. In the darkness, you cannot see it, but you can sense it. The air is filled with microscopic particles, ash from the fires, fibers from the wool cloaks, grit from the stone floor. They float in the stagnant air, never settling, caught in the eternal suspension of the room. You breathe shallowly, filtering the air through your nose, conscious of the age of the dust you are inhaling. It is the dust of history, the physical remnants of the past suspended in the present. Your movement through the corridor feels sluggish, as if the thickness of the air provides resistance. You push through the unseen layers of scent, parting the heavy atmosphere with your body. The smell of the tallow candle you passed earlier still lingers in your nose. A greasy, waxy scent that coats the throat. It mixes with the smell of the leather of your jerkin and the metallic tang of your keys. It is a sensory landscape as complex and crowded as a tapestry, woven from 1,000 distinct odors that have no place to go. The lack of fresh oxygen makes your eyelids heavy. The carbon dioxide exhaled by the sleepers in the rooms nearby, by the dying fires, by your own lungs, pools in these hallways. It is a soporific air designed to induce sleep, to slow the heart and dull the mind. It weighs down your thoughts, making them drift and lose focus. You feel a yawn building in your chest, a deep, primal need to pull in more air. But when you inhale, you only get more of the same heavy, recycled atmosphere. You stop and lean against a wall, the rough stone snagging the weave of your tunic. You close your eyes and focus on the sensation of breathing. In, the air is warm, thick, tasting of smoke and dust. Out, your breath leaves you, adding its own moisture and warmth to the mix, becoming part of the castle's atmosphere. You are not separate from this place. You are breathing it in, and it is breathing you in. The boundary between your body and the room blurs in this density. A beam of moonlight has managed to find a gap in the shutter further down the hall, cutting across the darkness like a pale blade. You watch the air where the light hits it. It is a swirling galaxy of motes, a slow motion chaos of dust dancing in the stillness. They move with agonizing slowness, drifting up, drifting down, colliding and separating. It is mesmerizing to watch, a visual confirmation of the air's thickness. The light does not just pass through the air, it illuminates the solid nature of it. You push off from the wall, your boots scuffing on the floorboards, stirring up a fresh cloud of ancient dust that you cannot see but can smell immediately. A dry, earthy scent like opening an old book. The corridor stretches on, a tunnel of heavy, still air. You move through it with the patience of a swimmer, conserving your energy, letting the atmosphere hold you. The desire for the fresh wind has faded, replaced by a heavy, drowsy acceptance. This is the air of the keep. It is the breath of the castle, slow and deep and ancient. You accept it into your lungs, letting the smoke and the stones settle within you, anchoring you to the floor, grounding you in the heavy, silent reality of the night. You step through an open archway into a small antechamber, a waiting room that sits silent and empty between the corridor and the Lord's private quarters. Here, the architecture shifts from the purely structural stone of the hallways to the inhabited space of the living, yet the feeling of unyielding solidity remains. The room is filled with shadows that cling to the furniture, heavy shapes that loom in the darkness like sleeping beasts. You move slowly towards the center of the room, your boots sinking slightly into the thick layer of dried rushes that covers the floor. The rushes are old, brittle under your weight, snapping with faint. Dry whispers that sound like autumn leaves blowing across pavement. They offer a semblance of insulation, a barrier between you and the freezing flagstones. But they are uneven and knotty, shifting unpredictably beneath your soles. To your right stands a massive oak bench, pushed back against the wall. It is a formidable piece of carpentry hewn from the heart of a tree that must have stood for centuries. You reach out and run your gloved hand along the backrest. The wood is not smooth in the way of polished, delicate things. It is rugged, the grain raised and distinct like the ridges of a fingerprint. You can feel the history of the timber through the leather of your glove, the knots and whorls that have turned to stone, hard protrusions over time. It is dark, almost black with age and layers of beeswax that have hardened into a shell, sealing the wood against the damp. You take off your glove, tucking it into your belt, and press your bare palm against the seat of the bench. The sensation is immediate and startling. The wood is cold. It has absorbed the temperature of the room, holding the chill within its dense fibers. It does not reflect your body heat. It swallows it. You realize that to sit here would be a battle of wills, your body fighting to warm the wood while the wood relentlessly drains the warmth from you. It is furniture designed for endurance, not for ease. The seat is flat and hard, a merciless plank that offers no contour to the human form. There is no curve to cradle the hip, no dip to welcome the weight of a tired traveler. It is a surface built for a straight spine and a vigilant mind, not for the surrender of sleep. Next to the bench stands a high-backed chair, the kind reserved for those of rank. It is a rigid throne of dark walnut, its back rising straight up, perpendicular to the floor. You trace the line of the armrest, a straight, thick bar of wood that ends in a carved lion's head. The carving is smooth, worn down by the nervous gripping of many hands, but the wood beneath is unforgiving. You imagine sitting there, the stiff, upright back forcing your shoulders to remain square, your neck to hold its own weight. There is no slouching here, no sinking back into a soft embrace. The chair demands posture. It demands that you remain alert, even in repose. It is a comfort of dignity, not of the body. On the seat of the chair lies a cushion, a square of heavy tapestry cloth stuffed with straw. It looks inviting in the dim light, a promise of softness in a room of hard edges. You press your hand into it, and the illusion shatters. The cushion is dense and lumpy, the straw packed so tightly that it feels more like a bag of sand than a pillow. It crunches softly under your pressure, a dry, rustling sound that speaks of dried stalks and fields. The fabric is coarse wool, scratchy and thick, designed to withstand the friction of armor and heavy tunics, not to soothe bare skin. If you were to rest your cheek against it, it would leave a pattern of red marks, a map of its rough weave imprinted on your face. You turn away from the furniture and look at the walls. They are hung with heavy tapestries, great woven scenes of forests and hunts that are meant to keep the drafts at bay. You step close to one, the fabric smelling of old dust and wool fat. You lift the edge of the tapestry slightly. It is heavy, stiff with the weight of the thread and the grime of years. It does not flow like silk. It bends like a sheet of soft lead. Beneath it, the stone wall is damp and sweating. You drop the fabric, and it falls back against the wall with a dull thump, instantly still again. It is less of a decoration and more of a shield, a thick, fibrous wall built to hide the stone wall behind it. The room feels filled with these hard comforts. Every object here, from the iron-bound chest in the corner to the heavy trestle table, is built to outlast the people who use it. There is a permanence to them that is intimidating. They do not adjust to you. You must adjust to them. You lean your hip against the edge of the table, and the sharp corner presses into your side. It is solid oak, 3 inches thick, immovable. It feels rooted to the floor, as much a part of the castle's structure as the pillars in the cellar. You look at the window seat, a stone ledge built into the thickness of the wall, covered with a thin layer of leather. It is the only place to sit and look out at the world, yet it is perhaps the coldest spot in the room. The stone underneath the leather is in direct contact with the outer wall, bridging the freezing night air and the interior. To sit there is to sit on a block of ice, separated only by a cured animal skin. You run your fingers over the leather. It is stiff and cold, cracking slightly under your touch. It offers no give, no warmth. It is a place for watching, for waiting, not for resting. The air in the room is still, undisturbed by your quiet examination. You feel a profound sense of the body's fragility here. Amidst all this wood and stone and iron, your flesh feels soft, vulnerable, and temporary. You crave a blanket of down, a mattress of feathers, something that would give way under your weight and hold you. But this room offers only resistance. It pushes back. It supports you, yes, but it does not hold you. You walk over to a small footstool near the hearth. It is covered in needlepoint, the threads worn bare in spots. You nudge it with your boot. It scrapes across the floor, a harsh sound. Even this small object is heavy, built on a frame of sturdy ash. Nothing here is light. Nothing here is effortless. To live here is to be constantly engaging with weight. The weight of the door you push open, the weight of the chair you drag to the fire, the weight of the cup you lift to your lips. The fire in the hearth has long since died, leaving behind a pile of gray ash and charred logs. The andirons, shaped like twisted iron bars, stand cold and black. You look at the empty grate, imagining the heat that is missing. Without the fire, the furniture loses its purpose. The bench is just a plank. The chair is just a frame. They are skeletons waiting for the warmth to flesh them out. You wrap your own cloak tighter around yourself, realizing that you are the softest thing in this room. Your wool cloak, your skin, your breath, these are the only yielding things in a landscape of rigid surfaces. You linger for a moment longer, your hand resting on the back of the high chair. You can feel the faint vibration of the wind hitting the castle walls, transmitted through the floor and up into the wood. The chair is singing the same low, silent note as the rest of the keep. It is connected, grounded. You withdraw your hand, leaving the cold wood to its vigil. The stiffness of the room has settled into your own joints. You feel the need to move, to keep the blood flowing, to escape the static, hard embrace of the furniture. Turning back towards the archway, you take a step, and the rushes whisper again. You leave the room to its silence, to its shadows, and to its unyielding, timeless waiting. The bench, the chair, the table, they remain exactly as they are, indifferent to your departure, indifferent to the night. They will be there tomorrow and the next century, hard and cold and enduring. You step back out into the corridor, carrying the memory of that hardness in your fingertips, a tactile reminder of the strength and the severity of the stone's embrace. You pass through the heavy, arched doorway that separates the austere rigidity of the outer corridor from the private, more intimate space of the solar. This is the heart of the living quarters, a room designed for comfort, for conversation, and for the quiet hours of the evening. Yet, as you cross the threshold, the air greets you not with warmth, but with a restless, shifting energy. The stillness you found in the lower halls and the stagnant weight of the antechamber are gone, replaced here by a subtle, invisible turbulence that keeps the room in a constant state of motion. The solar is located high in the tower, exposed on 3 sides to the night. And although the stone walls are thick, the elements have found a way to assert their presence. You stop in the center of the room, your boots sinking into a woven rush mat that covers the floorboards. The mat is thick, spiraled in patterns of green and brown, but even through its layers, you can feel the coolness rising from below. The floorboards here are not resting on solid earth, but are suspended over the beams of the great hall below, and through the microscopic gaps in the wood, a phantom breath of air rises and falls. It creates a layer of cold that hovers just above the ground, a low tide of chill that laps against your ankles. You can feel it circling your legs, searching for the opening of your trousers, a persistent, icy current that moves with the fluidity of water. Your attention is drawn to the windows. There are 2 of them in this room, large rectangular openings that have been shuttered against the night. The shutters are made of heavy oak planks, bound with iron straps and secured with thick wooden bars, yet they are not silent. A gust of wind hits the southern face of the tower outside, and the shutters rattle in their frames. It is a wooden, clattering sound. Clack, clack, thud, a nervous rhythm that speaks of the pressure building on the other side. The wood strains against the stone, the iron hinges groaning softly as they absorb the force of the gale. You watch the shutters for a moment, seeing them tremble slightly, holding back the storm but unable to ignore it. You walk closer to the nearest window, careful not to trip in the dim light. As you approach, the temperature drops perceptibly. It is not a gradual change, but a wall of cold that stands about 2 feet from the opening. You reach out a hand, palm open, towards the seam where the 2 shutters meet. You do not need to touch the wood to know what is happening. A jet of freezing air is streaming through the gap, a thin, knife-like draft that cuts through the stagnant air of the room. It hits your palm with surprising force, numbing the skin in seconds. It is a focused intrusion, a reminder that the seal of the castle is never perfect, that the masonry and carpentry are merely delaying the inevitable entry of the winter. Turning away from the window, you move towards the small table where a single beeswax candle has been left burning. The candle is thick, a column of pale yellow wax standing in a brass saucer. In a still room, the flame would be a steady, upright spear of light. But here, in the solar, the flame is frantic. It dances wildly, whipping back and forth, ducking and stretching as if dodging invisible blows. You watch the orange tongue of fire flicker, its movements revealing the complex, chaotic currents of air that swirl through the room. It bows low to the left, then snaps back to the right, casting erratic, jumping shadows that make the furniture seem to move. The smoke from the candle does not rise straight up. Instead, it is torn away the moment it leaves the wick, shredded into thin gray ribbons that are carried off horizontally towards the fireplace. This invisible river of air flows constantly across the room, a draft that moves from the windows to the chimney, creating a wind tunnel in the heart of the home. You pull your cloak tighter, wrapping the heavy wool across your chest, burying your chin in the collar. The draft finds every weakness in your clothing. It slips down the back of your neck, a cold finger tracing your spine. It rushes up your sleeves, raising gooseflesh on your arms. It is a relentless, probing cold that feels personal, as if the wind is searching for you specifically. You look at the tapestries that hang on the walls, great heavy sheets of woven wool depicting scenes of gardens and ladies. They are nailed firmly at the top, but the bottoms hang free. As you watch, the fabric lifts slowly, swelling outward, as if the wall behind it is taking a deep breath. Then it sighs back against the stone with a soft shush sound. The tapestries are breathing. The air pressure between the fabric and the cold stone wall fluctuates with the wind outside, causing the heavy cloth to billow and collapse in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. It gives the room a feeling of being alive, a massive lung that expands and contracts in the dark. Walking to the fireplace, you see that the fire is nothing more than a bed of glowing red coals, buried under a layer of white ash. The draft in the room is drawn towards this heat, sucked into the chimney with a low, hollow roar. You stand before the hearth, hoping for warmth, but the draft is so strong that it pulls the heat away from you, up the flue, before it can radiate into the room. You are standing in the path of the cold air rushing to escape. The chimney acts as a vacuum, stripping the room of its stillness, keeping the air in constant, chilly circulation. You sit for a moment on the edge of a chair, but you do not lean back. The air around the chair feels restless. You can hear the wind whistling through a keyhole in the door you just entered, a high-pitched, mournful note that rises and falls with the gusts. Who? It is a lonely sound, a voice of the castle complaining about the cold. You look at the heavy velvet curtains that flank the window. They are tied back, but the tassels sway gently, swinging like pendulums in the disturbed air. Nothing in this room is truly still. Everything is reacting to the invisible currents. You rub your hands together, the friction loud in the quiet room. The skin of your knuckles is dry and cold. You realize that indoor is a relative term here. You are sheltered from the rain and the snow, yes, but you are not separated from the atmosphere. The air you breathe is the same air that howls around the battlements, just slowed down, filtered through cracks, and chilled by the stone. The solar is not a sealed box. It is a sieve, permeable and open to the breath of the night. A sudden gust outside hits the tower with a heavy thud, like a giant fist striking the wall. The shutters rattle violently, and the candle flame is almost extinguished, shrinking down to a tiny blue spark before fighting its way back to life. You flinch slightly, an instinctive reaction to the violence of the wind. For a second, you feel the fragility of your shelter. You are small, soft, and warm, hiding inside a structure of rock and wood that is besieged by an ocean of cold air. You stand up again, too restless to sit in the draft. You move to the far corner of the room, seeking a dead spot, a place where the air is still. But there is no such place. The air circulates in a complex convection cycle, cold air falling from the high ceiling, warm air rising from the embers, drafts cutting across from the windows. You are standing in a weather system, a microclimate of chills and currents contained within four walls. Your eyes trace the floorboards again. You can see dust bunnies, small gatherings of lint and hair, rolling across the floor, pushed by the draft. They tumble silently, migrating from the window to the door, evidence of the invisible river. You watch one roll until it catches on the edge of the rug. It is a small, quiet movement, but it emphasizes the constant motion of the air. You reach out and touch the stone frame of the window, bypassing the wood. The stone is freezing, colder than ice. It radiates a chill that seems to push against your hand. The cold is not just coming in through the cracks. It is coming through the solid material itself. The wall is a conductor, transferring the winter from the outside to the inside with perfect efficiency. You withdraw your hand, blowing on your fingers to warm them. The silence of the room is layered with the sounds of the wind's intrusion. The rattle, the whistle, the creak, the rustle. It is a symphony of drafts. You find yourself listening to the specific timbre of the shutter's rattle, predicting when the next gust will hit. It becomes a rhythmic meditation. Gust, rattle, silence. Gust, rattle, silence. The castle is talking to the storm, a conversation of resistance and endurance. You pull the hood of your cloak up over your head. The wool muffles the sound of the wind, creating a smaller, quieter space around your ears. It cuts the draft on your neck, providing a sudden, immense relief. You feel safer, more contained. You are carrying your own room with you, a portable sanctuary of warmth in the drafty expanse of the solar. Looking back at the candle one last time, you see the wax has dripped down the side, cooling instantly into intricate, frozen cascades. The draft has shaped the wax, sculpting it into strange, wind-blown forms. Even the candle is shaped by the cold. You realize that you cannot fight the draft. You can only endure it. You are a guest in the house of the wind. You turn towards the door that leads to the bedchamber, hoping that the smaller room might offer more stillness. But as you open the door, you feel the pressure change, the air rushing past you to fill the new space. The draft follows you. It is a companion you cannot shake. You step through the doorway, leaving the dancing candle and the rattling shutters behind, but taking the memory of the moving air with you. The solar remains behind you, a room of restless shadows and invisible rivers, breathing its cold breath into the dark, leaving the restless air of the solar behind. You find a small, narrow door tucked into the curve of the wall. It is an unassuming portal, barely taller than your shoulder, bound in iron that has rusted to a deep, flaky orange. You lift the heavy latch, the metal cold and biting against your fingers, and push. The door resists at first, held back by the pressure of the night, before swinging outward with a low groan that is instantly snatched away by the wind. You step over the high stone threshold and out onto the walkway. You are now standing at the very pinnacle of the keep, on a narrow gallery that circles the highest tower. Here, the world changes completely. The heavy, stagnant atmosphere of the interior is gone, replaced by a vast, limitless sky that feels shockingly open after the confinement of the stone corridors. The air is thinner, sharper, and incredibly clean. It rushes into your lungs with a cold purity that wakes your senses, smelling of nothing but rain, high-altitude chill, and the distant, metallic scent of ozone. You move to the edge of the parapet, placing your hands on the rough, crenellated stone. The masonry is wet, slick with the moisture of the clouds that drift just above your head. You lean forward slightly, looking down, and find nothing. The ground has vanished. The castle walls drop away into a deep, impenetrable abyss of shadow. You cannot see the courtyard, the moat, or the stables. The darkness is so absolute that it feels as though the castle is floating in a void, disconnected from the earth entirely. You are an island of stone in a sea of night. Far below, where the village should be, there is only a blanket of thick, rolling fog. It glows faintly with a spectral gray luminosity, catching the scattered light of the hidden moon. The fog moves, slowly, like a silent, heavy ocean, swallowing the valley floor, the trees, and the roads. It erases the world of men, hiding the cottages and the fields, leaving you alone in the sky. You feel a profound sense of separation. The problems of the day, the noise of the household, the muddy realities of the ground. They are all buried under that gray tide. Up here, there is only you and the wind. The wind at this height is not the drafty nuisance of the solar. It is a constant, powerful force. It does not gust, it flows. It presses against you with a steady, unyielding weight, pushing the heavy wool of your cloak back against your legs. You have to lean into it slightly to keep your balance, finding a rhythm with the gale. It roars in your ears, a continuous, white noise rush that drowns out all other sounds. It is a cleansing sound, sweeping away the quiet creaks and groans of the interior, leaving only the elemental roar of the sky. You look out toward the horizon, but there is no line where the earth meets the sky. There is only a gradient of black and gray. You feel incredibly small, a tiny speck of warmth standing on a man-made cliff, yet you also feel giant. You are the highest thing for miles. You are the eye of the landscape, the silent observer of the storm. The solitude is absolute. There is no one else here. No one else is awake to see this emptiness. The sense of loneliness is not sad. It is majestic. It is the peaceful, sovereign loneliness of the mountain peak. The stone under your boots feels different here. Solid, anchored, yet soaring. You can feel the tower swaying ever so slightly. It is an imperceptible movement to the eye, but your body senses it. A tiny, rhythmic vibration as the stone structure flexes against the wind. It reminds you that the castle is not just a pile of rocks, but a balanced work of engineering, fighting a constant battle against gravity and the gale. You trust it. You trust the stone to hold you up in this dark sky. You pull your cloak up to your nose, shielding your face from the stinging cold. The wind carries tiny droplets of moisture, a microscopic rain that clings to your eyelashes and cools your skin. It feels bracing, tightening the pores, washing away the dust of the lower floors. You take a deep breath, tasting the clouds. This is the air that birds breathe, the air of the upper atmosphere. It feels wild and untamed. Below you, a break in the fog reveals a single, tiny point of orange light, perhaps a lantern left burning in a farmhouse miles away. It flickers for a second, a fragile star in the ocean of darkness, and then the fog rolls over it again, extinguishing it. The world below is asleep, unconscious, unaware of the vastness of the night. You are the only witness. You turn your back to the wind, leaning against the solid stone of the tower wall behind you. The rough surface digs into your shoulders through the wool, a grounding sensation. You look up. The clouds are moving fast, tearing themselves apart on the jagged stones of the battlements. For a brief second, The moon appears, a pale, watery blur behind the mist, before being swallowed again. The light it casts is ghostly and silver, painting the wet stones of the walkway in monochrome highlights. The height creates a strange sense of peace. The danger of the fall is there. Yes, hidden in the dark, but the overwhelming feeling is one of detachment. You are above it all. The anxieties of the earth cannot reach you here. The cold wind blows them away. The silence of the height is a mental silence, a clearing of the mind caused by the sheer scale of the view. Your hands are numb where they grip the stone, but you do not let go. You want to stay here a moment longer, suspended between the earth and the sky. You watch the fog churn, slow and hypnotic. You listen to the wind howl. You feel the solitude wrapping around you, tighter than your cloak. This is the lonely height, the place where the castle touches the heavens, and for this moment, you are part of that connection. You are the gargoyle, the watchman, the silent stone figure looking out into the forever. Eventually, the cold begins to seep through even your heavy layers. It is time to go back in. But you move slowly, reluctant to leave this vast, open cathedral of the night. You take one last look at the void, committing the emptiness to memory. You push off from the wall, your boots heavy on the wet stone, and step back toward the small, iron-bound door. You pull it open, and the wind tries to rush in with you, but you step through and heave it shut, sealing the storm outside. The silence of the interior returns instantly, heavy and muffled. You are back inside the stone beast, but the feeling of the height remains in your mind, a memory of wind, vastness, and peace. You close the heavy iron, bound door behind you, shutting out the wild, thin air of the ramparts and the restless drafts of the solar, and step into the final chamber of the night. This is the bedchamber, the innermost sanctuary of the keep, a room designed with a singular purpose to hoard warmth and induce the heavy oblivion of sleep. The air here is different yet again. It is still, almost motionless, but it carries a density that feels physical. It is thick with the scent of dried lavender, old wool, and the faint, lingering beeswax of a candle that was snuffed out hours ago. The darkness is nearly absolute, softened only by the faintest gray light leaking around the edges of the heavy window tapestries, just enough to outline the massive shape that dominates the room. The bed stands in the center of the floor, not merely a piece of furniture, but a structure within a structure, a wooden fortress built to defy the cold. It is a great four-poster frame of dark, turned oak rising up to touch the ceiling beams. It looks like a cage for dreams, heavy and imposing. You move towards it, your steps muffled by the thick bare rug that covers the cold flagstones. The fur is coarse under your boots, a reminder of the wild world outside. but here it serves only to separate your feet from the freezing earth. You begin to shed the layers of the day, a slow, clumsy process in the chill. The heavy cloak falls from your shoulders, landing with a soft thud, and immediately you feel the loss of its heat. The air of the room, though still, is biting. It presses against your tunic, finding the gaps in the fabric, urging you to hurry. You strip down to your linen shift, the fabric cold and stiff against your skin, and approach the side of the bed. It is high, built well off the floor to escape the lowest, coldest layer of air that creeps along the stones. You have to step up, placing your knee onto the edge of the mattress to hoist yourself in. As your weight settles onto the bed, the silence of the room is shattered by a sudden, dry cacophony. The mattress is not a single, solid piece, but a great linen sack stuffed tight with straw and dried husks. With every movement, the straw protests. It rustles and crackles, a sound like walking through dry autumn leaves, loud and startling in the quiet. Crackle, sha, crunch. The sound is close to your ear, magnified by the stillness. It is the sound of the harvest, of dry fields and summer sun, now trapped in the dark and compressed under your weight. You crawl towards the center of the bed, the surface beneath you shifting and uneven. The straw has clumped together over time, creating ridges and valleys, hard knots and sudden dips. You cannot simply lie down. You must navigate the topography of the mattress, searching for a hollow that will accept the shape of your body. You shift your hips, and the straw grinds together. You move your shoulder, and the husks snap. It is a bed that requires negotiation, a restless surface that remembers every sleeper who has come before. Beneath the straw tick, you can feel the tension of the ropes that support the bed. There are no wooden slats here, only a grid of thick hemp ropes woven through the bed frame. They have stretched with age, sagging in the middle, creating a hammock, like dip that pulls you inevitably towards the center. You can feel the knots of the rope grid pressing up through the bottom of the mattress, faint. Hard pressure points that dig into your back. The bed creaks rhythmically as the ropes groan under the strain, a sound like the rigging of a ship at sea. Kriiak. It is a lullaby of tension and wood, a reminder that you are suspended, held up by tension alone. You reach for the coverings, your hands finding the edge of the pile. This is not a light covering, it is a geological layer of warmth. First, there are the sheets, spun from coarse linen that feels cool and slightly damp to the touch. They do not warm up quickly. They steal the heat from your legs. A shock of cold that makes you draw your breath in sharply. Over the sheets are the wool blankets, dense and scratchy, smelling of lanolin and the loom. And finally, on top lie the furs, heavy, cured hides of wolf or bear, lined with felt. You pull this mountain of bedding up over your chest, and the weight of it is immediate and crushing. It presses you down into the straw, pinning your limbs to the mattress. It is a protective weight, a heavy hand holding you safe, but it is also restrictive. To turn over requires a significant effort, a heave of the shoulder to lift the layers of hide and wool. You lie on your back, entombed beneath the furs, feeling the slow accumulation of warmth beginning to build in the small pocket of air between your skin and the linen. Above you, the canopy, the tester, stretches like a fabric sky. In the darkness you can barely see it, but you know it is there. It is made of heavy velvet, gathered in folds that have collected the dust of decades. It serves to trap your breath, to keep the warm air from rising up into the high ceiling of the room, creating a micro-climate within the bed curtains. You stare up into the black void of the canopy, imagining the dust motes floating there, undisturbed. Suspended in the stagnant warmth you are creating, you reach out and pull the bed curtains closed. They slide along the wooden rails with a soft shushing sound, sealing you in. Now you are truly enclosed. The room is gone, the castle is gone. There is only the dark, square box of the bed. The air inside the curtains immediately feels different, stiller, closer, more intimate. It smells of feathers from the pillows and the savory, musky scent of your own skin. The curtains are thick, designed to block the drafts, but they are not perfect. As you lie there, waiting for the warmth to spread to your toes, you feel a tiny, traitorous current of air. It has found a gap where the curtains do not quite meet, a thin, icy finger that reaches in from the room. It touches your cheek, cool and insistent. You shift, trying to tuck the heavy quilt under your chin to create a seal around your neck. The straw rustles loudly with your movement, a dry explosion of noise that drowns out the wind outside for a moment. You bury your face deeper into the pillow. The pillow is small and hard, stuffed with goose down that has been compressed into a dense brick. It offers little yield. You punch it gently, trying to fluff the feathers, but it settles back into a lump. You rest your head, your ear pressed against the ticking. Through the pillow, you can hear the vibration of the bed frame, the subtle resonance of the wood. It amplifies the sound of your own pulse. A rhythmic thump in your ear that sounds surprisingly loud. Your feet are still cold, 2 blocks of ice at the bottom of the bed. You rub them together, the dry linen rasping against your skin. You stretch your legs out, exploring the cold reaches of the mattress, then retract them quickly, curling into a ball to conserve heat. It is a game of territory, slowly claiming inches of the bed, warming them with your body before moving on. The rest of the bed remains hostile territory, freezing and vast. You are careful to keep your arms under the covers. The air in the room, even inside the curtains, is frigid. If you let a hand dangle out, the cold bites at your fingers instantly. You keep your limbs close to your body, wrapped in a tight bundle. You feel like a hibernating animal burrowed deep into a nest of dry grass and fur, waiting out the long winter. The weight of the furs feels like the earth itself pressing down on you. The darkness inside the curtains is grainy and soft. Your eyes are open, but there is nothing to see. The visual world has been extinguished. Your other senses take over. You feel the scratch of the wool blanket where the sheet has slipped down. You smell the old wood of the headboard. You hear the settling of the straw as it slowly conforms to your weight. The bed is adjusting to you, accepting you into its structure. Outside the heavy curtains, the room creaks. A floorboard settles. The tapestry against the wall sighs. But here, inside the box, there is a sense of separation. You are floating in the dark, suspended on ropes, cradled in straw. The discomforts, the lumps, the cold spots, the heavy weight, begin to fade into a general sensation of security. The bed is hard, yes, but it is safe. It is a fortress within a fortress. You let your breath out in a long, slow sigh. The air inside the canopy warms slightly with your exhalation. You are creating your own atmosphere, breath by breath. The cold tip of your nose is the only part of you that registers the temperature of the night. The rest of you is sinking, heavy and slow, into the embrace of the mattress. The straw stops rustling. The ropes stop creaking. The bed holds you still. You are just a weight now, a warm object in the dark, waiting for the mind to follow the body into the heavy, dreamless silence of the stone. The struggle against the cold has ceased, replaced by a quiet, heavy truce between your body and the bed. You have stopped moving, stopped seeking a better position, and in your stillness, the bed has ceased its complaints. The rustling of the straw mattress quiets down to a faint, settled whisper, and the creaking of the ropes fades into the background of the room's silence. You are no longer fighting the environment, you are surrendering to it. The weight of the furs, which moments ago felt crushing and restrictive, now feels like a necessary anchor, a heavy hand pressing you down into the deep, dark earth of sleep. A small, private climate has finally begun to form beneath the layers of wool and hide. It is a slow, creeping warmth, generated by your own blood and trapped by the heavy covers. It starts at your chest, a core of heat that radiates outward, inch by inch, reclaiming the territory of your limbs from the chill. You can feel the warmth traveling down your thighs, past your knees, slowly pushing the cold away. It is not a burning heat, nor even a cozy one. It is a tepid, survivalist warmth, just enough to tell your body that it is safe to let go. Your toes, previously blocks of ice, begin to tingle as the blood returns to them. The sensation is faint, a distant signal from the edge of your body, but it is enough. You curl your toes once, feeling the rough linen of the sheet, and then you let them relax. They uncurl, heavy and loose, sinking into the straw. The tension drains out of your ankles, your calves, your hips. You are melting into the mattress, your body losing its rigidity, conforming to the lumps and valleys of the bed until you are part of its landscape. The air inside the bed curtains has become heavy with your breath. It is a humid, intimate atmosphere smelling of sleep and safety. You inhale slowly, and the air does not sting your throat anymore. It enters smoothly, a rhythmic cycle that has slowed down to match the pace of the room. In and out, in and out. There is no rush. There is nowhere to go. The castle is locked. The gates are barred, and the night watch is walking the walls. Your duty is done. Your only task now is to breathe. Outside the thick velvet curtains, the room continues its secret life. You hear the faint pop of a timber settling in the roof, a sound that feels miles away. You hear the wind buffeting the stone walls, a low, constant drone that sounds like the ocean. But these sounds no longer concern you. They are the sounds of the outer world, a world you have left behind. You are safe inside the box, inside the dark, protected by feet of stone and layers of wool. The wind cannot reach you here. The cold cannot touch you. Your eyes are open, staring up into the pitch black of the canopy, but there is nothing to see. The darkness is absolute. It presses against your eyes, a soft, velvety weight that soothes the optic nerve. There are no shadows to chase, no flicker of candlelight to distract you. The visual world has simply ceased to exist. You blink, and the sensation of your eyelids touching is the only visual data you have. Heavy, slow, they close, and you do not feel the urge to open them again. The darkness behind your eyelids is the same as the darkness in the room. You are continuous with the night. Thoughts that were sharp and jagged an hour ago, worries about the winter stores, the repair of the wall, the morning drills, begin to blur. They lose their edges, becoming soft and shapeless. They drift through your mind like the fog outside, slow and heavy, dissolving before you can hold on to them. You try to grasp a thought, but it slips away, replaced by the physical sensation of the bed, the scratch of the wool, the scent of the lavender, the weight on your chest. The physical reality overpowers the mental one. You feel a profound heaviness settling in your bones. It is as if the stone of the castle is seeping into you, turning your flesh into something solid and immovable. Your arms feel like lead weights resting by your sides. If you wanted to lift a hand now, it would require an immense effort, a summoning of will that you simply do not possess. You are content to be heavy. You are content to be still. Gravity is your friend, pulling you down, deeper into the mattress, deeper into the earth. The cold tip of your nose is the only reminder of the freezing night, a small point of contrast that makes the warmth of the bed feel even sweeter. You bury your chin slightly deeper into the fur, covering your mouth, recycling your warmth. The fur tickles your cheek, soft and coarse at the same time. It is a primal sensation huddling in a den, waiting for the sun that is hours and hours away. Time begins to stretch and warp. The space between breaths grows longer. The silence between heartbeats expands. You are drifting in a timeless void, suspended in the dark. You are not asleep yet, but you are no longer fully awake. You are in the gray space between, the borderland where the body rests before the mind follows. It is a peaceful place, empty of demand, empty of noise. The castle surrounds you. You can sense its mass, its towering height, its deep foundations. It is a giant, silent guardian holding you in its palm. The walls that felt cold and unyielding earlier now feel strong and protective. They stand between you and the void, shielding you, embracing you. You are a small, warm heart beating in the center of a stone giant. Your breathing deepens, becoming a soft snore that vibrates in your chest. The rhythm is steady, automatic. Your mind lets go of the last tether. The darkness washes over you completely, a gentle tide rising to cover your head. You do not float, you sink. Down, down, into the warmth, into the straw, into the silence. The resignation is complete. You have accepted the night. You have accepted the rest. The torches flicker. The corridor quiets. A gentle breeze brushes the stones. The castle sleeps, and you are part of the stone now, still and silent in the deep, dark embrace of the keep. Now take a deep breath, and may you have a peaceful sleep.